The phone call came just before sunrise. A neighbor later said the street was still quiet, the sky barely turning from deep blue to pale gray. Most people in the apartment complex were still asleep. But inside one home, something had gone terribly wrong. A loud knock echoed through the hallway. No response. Another knock. Still nothing. Then the door finally opened. What happened inside that apartment would send shockwaves through fans of YU Menglong around the world. Because the woman who had quietly supported him for years, the woman who had always stayed far away from the spotlight, was suddenly at the center of a frightening emergency. His mother had been found unconscious. Within minutes, an ambulance siren cut through the silent morning air. Neighbors stepped onto their balconies, confused and worried as flashing lights painted the building walls red and blue. 2 paramedics rushed inside the apartment while another prepared the stretcher. The tension in that moment felt unreal. And the question on everyone's mind was the same. What happened? Stay with us in this video because we're going to walk you through the entire story, from the shocking discovery inside the apartment, to the emotional connection many fans believe links this moment to the tragedy that shook the world on September 11, 2025. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this incident has reignited conversations about the legacy of YU Menglong and the emotional toll his passing left behind. Because sometimes, the people who suffer the most are the ones who stay silent. The ambulance arrived at the hospital just 8 minutes after leaving the apartment building. Doctors were already waiting. Witnesses described the scene as tense and urgent. Medical staff quickly wheeled the stretcher through the emergency entrance while nurses cleared the hallway. Inside the emergency room, monitors beeped as doctors began evaluating her condition. No one outside the room knew what the diagnosis would be, but word had already begun spreading online. Within hours, fans across social media were sharing posts asking the same worried question. Was YU Menglong's mother okay? For many longtime fans, this moment felt painfully emotional. Because even though she rarely appeared in public, people who followed YU Menglong's career knew how important she had always been in his life. Years earlier, during a quiet interview, YU Menglong had once spoken about his childhood. He described a small home, a simple life, and a mother who always believed in him even when his dream of becoming an actor seemed impossible. "She never doubted me," he had said with a soft smile. That single sentence became one of the most quoted moments among his fans. It revealed something deeper about the man behind the celebrity image. Before the stage lights, before the cameras, before the fame, there had simply been a son and his mother. Which is why the news of her medical emergency struck such a powerful emotional chord with people around the world. Back at the hospital, doctors worked quickly. Medical staff closed the curtains around her bed as machines monitored her heart rate and breathing. Nurses moved quietly through the room, adjusting 4 lines and checking vital signs. Time seemed to move slower inside that emergency ward. Outside the hospital, reporters began gathering near the entrance. Some fans arrived too. They stood quietly across the street, holding their phones but speaking in hushed voices. For many of them, it felt like history was repeating itself in a painful way. Because the memory of September 11, 2025 was still fresh in their minds. That was the day rumors and reports began spreading about the sudden death of YU Menglong. The news had spread quickly. Fans woke up that morning to messages, headlines, and posts filled with shock and disbelief. At first, many refused to believe it. YU Menglong had always seemed calm, healthy, and full of quiet determination. His performances on screen had earned him a loyal fanbase that admired not just his acting, but his humble personality. The thought that he could be gone so suddenly felt impossible. But as the hours passed, the emotional weight of that day became undeniable. Fans flooded social media with tributes, memories, and heartfelt messages. Some shared clips from his dramas. Others posted photos from fan meetings. Many simply wrote the same sentence again and again. "We miss you." And now, months later, the sudden hospitalization of his mother had reopened those emotional wounds. Back inside the hospital, doctors finally began seeing signs of improvement. Her breathing stabilized. Her heart rate became more regular. One nurse later described the moment as a turning point. The room, which had been filled with tension only minutes earlier, slowly began to feel calmer. But the emotional impact of the situation was far from over. Because when someone loses a child, especially someone as beloved as YU Menglong, the grief doesn't disappear. It lingers quietly, sometimes hidden, sometimes overwhelming. Medical experts often say that intense emotional stress can affect the body in powerful ways. Sleep becomes difficult. Appetite fades. Energy disappears. And sometimes the emotional weight becomes too heavy for the body to carry alone. Many fans believed that might be exactly what happened here. A mother who had endured unimaginable loss, finally reaching a moment where her body simply couldn't keep going without help. Later that evening, hospital staff allowed a close family member to visit her room. Witnesses described the moment as deeply emotional. The visitor held her hand for several minutes without speaking. The hospital hallway outside remained quiet. No cameras. No interviews. Just a private moment between family members trying to hold themselves together. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, fans had started lighting small candles. Some wrote messages on paper notes and placed them near the entrance. They weren't there for publicity. They were there out of respect. Out of gratitude for the man whose work had touched their lives. And out of concern for the woman who had raised him. One fan held up a small photo of YU Menglong and whispered something softly before placing it beside the candles. Moments like that revealed just how powerful the connection between artists and audiences can be. Even when they never meet in person. Even when they live thousands of miles apart. The emotional bond remains. As the night grew darker, hospital staff confirmed that YU Menglong's mother was now in stable condition. Doctors planned to keep her under observation for the next several days. The announcement brought relief to fans who had been anxiously waiting for updates. But the deeper emotional story behind this moment continued to resonate. Because the sudden health scare reminded everyone of something important. Behind every public figure is a private family. Behind every career is a lifetime of support from people who believed in them long before the world noticed. And sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who quietly carry the heaviest pain. For YU Menglong's mother, the world only knew a small part of her story. They saw the celebrity her son became. But they rarely saw the sacrifices, the encouragement, and the quiet strength that helped him reach that point. Now, as she recovers in a hospital room surrounded by medical equipment and soft monitor lights, millions of fans are once again thinking about the legacy of the man she raised. The actor who brought characters to life on screen. The singer whose voice comforted listeners during difficult moments. The son who once said his biggest motivation was making his mother proud. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of this story. Not the emergency. Not the headlines. But the reminder that love between family members continues long after the spotlight fades. Before we end this video, we want to hear from you. How did you feel when you first heard about the hospitalization of YU Menglong's mother? Do you think the emotional impact of losing a loved one can affect health in ways people often underestimate? And what is your favorite memory of YU Menglong, a drama scene, an interview moment, or something else that made you admire him? The hallway outside the hospital room was unusually quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above the polished floor, and every few seconds the distant echo of hospital equipment created a faint rhythm in the background. But behind one particular door, a story filled with emotion, mystery, and heartbreak was quietly unfolding. Inside that room lay the mother of YU Menglong. Just hours earlier, she had been rushed into the emergency department after being found unconscious in her home. The news had spread like wildfire online, and within minutes fans across the world began asking the same painful question. Was the tragedy surrounding YU Menglong's death still haunting his family? Doctors had stabilized her condition, but the atmosphere around the situation felt heavier than just a medical emergency. Nurses walking past the room whispered to each other. A senior physician paused twice before entering, carefully reviewing her chart. Something about the moment felt deeply emotional. Because everyone knew the same thing. This wasn't just any patient. This was the mother of a man whose death on September 11, 2025 had shaken millions. Inside the room, the lights were dimmed slightly to help her rest. A heart monitor blinked steadily beside the bed, its soft beeping filling the silence like a quiet metronome measuring each passing second. Her breathing was stable now, but doctors said she had collapsed due to extreme exhaustion and emotional stress. And when the news leaked to the public, fans immediately began connecting the dots. 4 months after the shocking loss of YU Menglong, his mother had stayed almost completely out of the public eye. She had avoided interviews. She had avoided cameras. Even during memorial events, she rarely appeared. But those close to the family quietly said something heartbreaking. The grief never left her. According to a source who claimed to have spoken with a relative, YU Menglong's mother had been struggling with sleepless nights ever since that tragic September. Neighbors described seeing lights on in her apartment well past midnight. Some nights, they said, the window in the living room remained illuminated until dawn. One neighbor later shared a chilling detail. Sometimes, through the thin apartment walls, they could hear music playing quietly late at night. Not just any music. Songs performed by her son. Imagine the weight of that moment. A mother sitting alone in a quiet apartment, listening to the voice of the child she lost. Again. And again. And again. Friends reportedly tried to encourage her to rest, to travel, to spend time with family. But grief has a way of locking people inside memories. Every corner of the house carried reminders. The hallway where he once walked. The room where he used to practice singing. The photographs hanging on the wall. And perhaps most painfully of all, the silence that replaced his voice. Doctors at the hospital later suggested that months of emotional pressure may have weakened her physically. Sleep deprivation, stress, and deep emotional trauma can slowly drain the body's strength. Then one morning, it finally reached a breaking point. When she was discovered unconscious, the scene inside the apartment reportedly looked frozen in time. A cup of tea still sat on the table. A music player remained on pause. And next to the couch was a framed photograph of YU Menglong smiling brightly during one of his earlier television appearances. Paramedics arriving at the scene immediately realized how fragile the situation was. They moved quickly but carefully. The stretcher was rolled into the living room. Medical equipment was unpacked. A neighbor later described hearing one of the paramedics speak softly to her while checking her pulse. "Stay with us." Those 3 words echoed through the room. Within minutes, she was placed in the ambulance and rushed toward the nearest hospital. Meanwhile, outside the building, curious residents had begun gathering. Phones came out. Messages were sent. And soon the internet was buzzing with speculation. Fans of YU Menglong began posting emotional reactions online. Some wrote messages praying for her recovery. Others shared memories of the actor, reminding everyone how much he loved his family. One comment that quickly went viral read, "His mother gave the world someone who brought us so much joy. Now we must send that love back to her." Back at the hospital, doctors worked through the afternoon monitoring her condition. Medical staff confirmed that her vital signs had stabilized, but they remained cautious. Emotionally fragile patients sometimes require more time to fully recover. And in situations involving grief, the healing process can be unpredictable. At one point during the evening, a family member arrived quietly at the hospital. Witnesses described the moment as deeply emotional. The visitor walked slowly down the hallway, paused outside the room for several seconds, and then stepped inside. The door closed gently behind them. Inside that room, something very human was happening. A family trying to hold each other together. A family still carrying the shadow of a devastating loss. And a mother who had once cheered proudly for her son as he chased his dreams. Years before the tragedy of September 11, 2025, YU Menglong had spoken about his mother during a television interview. He described her as strong, patient, and endlessly supportive. "She believed in me before anyone else did," he said. That sentence has stayed with fans ever since. Because behind every artist is someone who encouraged them long before fame arrived. Late that evening, hospital staff gave a small update. Her condition had improved slightly. She was resting. And doctors were optimistic. When the news reached fans online, thousands of messages flooded social media. People posted candles, heart emojis, Photos of YU MENGLONG smiling on stage. Even fans who had never met him felt connected to this moment. Because the story wasn't just about a celebrity anymore. It was about family. About love. About the silent pain that can follow tragedy. Outside the hospital, a few fans had quietly gathered under the dim streetlights. One young woman placed a small bouquet of flowers near the entrance. Another held a printed photo of YU MENGLONG and whispered something before leaving. Moments like that revealed something powerful. Even months after his passing, the emotional connection between him and his supporters remained incredibly strong. Inside the hospital room, the machines continued their steady rhythm. Beep. Pause. Beep. Each sound was a reminder that life, even after devastating loss, continues to move forward. Doctors hoped that with proper care, rest, and emotional support, YU MENGLONG'S mother would recover fully. But for many fans, the moment carried a deeper meaning. It reminded them how fragile life can be, and how the ripple effects of tragedy can reach far beyond what the public ever sees. Before we end this video, we want to hear your thoughts. How did you feel when you heard that YU MENGLONG'S mother was rushed to the hospital? Do you think the grief of losing a child can affect a person's health this deeply? And what is the one moment from YU MENGLONG that you will always remember? Was it a drama scene, an interview, or one of his songs? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please don't forget to like this video, share it with other fans, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories and deep updates like this. Your support helps keep these stories alive. We're reading your comments, and we can't wait to hear what you think.